All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to DAV Chapter 10's Online Benefits Information Series. Today is Tuesday, October 27th, and we will be presenting to you the 7 methods of service connection. These are going to be all of the different ways that a veteran can try to get a disability or disease related to their military service. So, before we get all kicked off and underway, we've got several presenters with us this evening. My name is Shane. I've been a DAV Service Officer, and I'm currently on our legislative staff. I've been doing this for over 22 years. Also joining us is DAV Chapter 10 Commander Tom Wendell, who's the supervisor of the DAV National Appeals Office at the Board of Veterans Appeals in Washington, D.C. He's been doing this for 20 years. And also with us is Jeremy Yost, who's the supervisor of the DAV National Service Office in Washington, D.C., and he's been doing this, I believe, over around 10 years or more. So just to let you guys know, you have 50 years of claims and service officer experience here with you this evening. So if you have questions when we get to that section, hold your question. We'll be able to help and steer you in the right direction. So again, welcome everybody, and I'd like to introduce, with a few opening comments, our Chapter 10 Commander, Tom Wendell. Tom?
Thank you very much, Shane. I appreciate that introduction, and welcome everybody. We're glad that everybody's joining us tonight. We hope that you get a little bit out of this training. And if you haven't seen some of our other training, you can go on to the Chapter 10 website. We do have some other videos that we've recorded in the past. This was the very first one we did, but at that point we didn't know we could record everything. So now we're doing it again so we can record it so everyone can use it later on. But we appreciate everybody being here. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Yost, the supervisor of our DC National Service Office, and he's going to lead us in this period of instruction. All yours, Jeremy.
Thank you, Tom. So my name is Jeremy Yost. I'm going to be the one that's mostly doing the training tonight, but I'll be getting help from our commander, Tom Wendell, and our adjutant, Shane Learman. So we're going to start off with the 7 ways of service connection. Our agenda tonight is the importance of service connection and the 7 methods of service connection as well. So what is service connected? Service connected means, with respect to disability or death, a formal VA decision that such disability was incurred or aggravated, or that the death resulted from a disability incurred or aggravated in the line of duty, in the line of active military, naval, or air service. I apologize. So why is service connection important? Service connection leads to compensation, free VA medical treatment, VA life insurance eligibility, certain fee waivers for home loan, and state and local benefits. Now that we know what it means to be service connected, and the service connection starts on a sequential benefits, let's explore the different ways to establish service connection. So our first way of service connection is direct service connection. Direct service connection, it may be granted for any disease diagnosed after discharge when all the evidence, including the pertinent to service, establishes that the disease was incurred in service. Direct service connection needs 3 things. First, medical evidence of a current disability. 2, evidence of an in-service incurrence. 3, medical evidence of a nexus between the claimed in-service disease or an injury and the current disability. And this is found under Hickson v. West. So a example of direct service connection is a veteran was injured in a training accident and hurt their right shoulder. During that time, they were diagnosed after service with a right shoulder strain to include arthritis. The medical provider provided a nexus stating that the condition was more than likely due to the injury he sustained in military service and provided a detailed reason why that doctor believes so. Tom, do you have any other examples?
Yes, I do. And great job there. In reference to direct service connection, what you're primarily looking at is you had a injury that you sustained while on active duty. So when you're looking at that, many people think, well, if I'm at home on leave, that didn't happen while I was on active duty. Well, yes, it did. So even if you were at home and you were playing basketball and you broke your knee, playing basketball at home on leave, that still happened while you're on active duty. So that type of injury would still constitute direct service connection. So back to you, Jeremy.
All right, Rick. Shane, do you have anything? Or
Yes, I do, Jeremy. Thank you for asking. Real quick, everyone. I can't really talk about the importance enough of these three things, and the reason is these three things can get you service connected for almost anything if we have the right evidence. So these three things are very important. As Jeremy noted, do we have current evidence of a disability? It means a diagnosis from a physician or a doctor treating you that says you have the claimed condition. The second is evidence of in-service occurrence. In other words, something in your medical records from active military service or something from your personnel records that can show maybe there was an incident. And that third thing is a medical opinion from a doctor saying your current diagnosed condition, number one, is related to, number two, the in-service occurrence. They don't need to say it implicitly without a doubt. They just need to say it's at least as likely as not. So as long as you remember those three things, you can establish service connection for a whole variety of conditions if you have the right evidence. One of the reasons that we see a lot of denials of disabilities when veterans file claims is because they're missing one of those three things, right? It's because they don't either have a diagnosis or we can't find something in their service medical records, or they're missing that medical opinion linking it together. So as long as you keep those three things in mind, you can get a lot of things service connected. If you need help with this, that's where you should seek out somebody, specifically one of the service organizations that provides representation. There are several out there. Obviously, we're all going to be biased about DAV because we are DAV Service Officers. But yeah, just keep those three things in mind because that really does make the difference in establishing these benefits. So before we move on, Jeremy, you want to see if we have any questions from anybody who's logged in about direct service connection and those three things?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Shane, are you seeing anything in the chat?
No, I didn't look in the chat. And there's nothing, so we're good.
All right.
Oh, yeah, you're waiting on me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not the sharpest knife in the chandelier. Here you go.
All right. So the second way of 7 methods of service connection is secondary service connection. So what is secondary service connection? It is a disability which is approximately due to or the result of a service-connected disease or injury shall be service-connected. When the service connection is thus established for a secondary condition, the secondary condition shall be considered a part of the original condition. Generally requires three things. Again, it's pretty similar to the same thing for direct service connection. 1, you need a current diagnosis. 2, a service-connected disability that could cause that condition. And 3, a medical opinion linking the current diagnosis as being caused by the service-connected disability. So this also comes into play, the same thing as a medical nexus from a doctor. They still need to provide a link on how the condition could be related to one of your service-connected disabilities. So an example, the veteran is service-connected for a left knee condition. Over time, the right knee has started to go bad due to overcompensation and putting more weight on that right side because the left side is damaged. The doctor has provided a medical opinion that due to that overcompensation and the wear on that right knee, that current diagnosed right knee strain or arthritis, whatever condition they deem, is due to the current service-connected left knee condition due to that overcompensation from that knee injury. Tom, do you have any others?
Yes, I do. A couple things to think about is a lot of times people have issues with depression that may be caused by a service-connected condition. So let's just use it for an example. Someone gets diagnosed with, say prostate cancer. So just the word cancer can cause a form of depression with people, which if they're depressed because of their service-connected prostate cancer and the residuals of that prostate cancer, as long as the doctor gives that medical opinion saying that the depression is due to that service-connected prostate cancer, then you could get service connection for the depression. Other things we look at it with depression is people that have chronic pain syndrome. Chronic pain causes depression in people, and that depression can be service connected just as well related to that chronic pain syndrome. And another thing to look at as far as things that people don't always think about is a medication that you're taking for a service-connected condition could cause a secondary problem. So let's just say that you're taking a lot of Motrin for your service-connected knee condition, and that Motrin causes you to have a stomach ulcer. You could then get that stomach ulcer service-connected as a secondary condition. So the biggest thing in secondary conditions is always going to be that medical opinion, a doctor helping you to link that current condition to a service-connected condition. So I have a lot of veterans that say, well, I have this condition that's causing this other problem. Well, that's great, but we just need that medical opinion. We need a doctor to help us do that link. And once we get that, then we can be pretty successful. So Shane, any other examples or remarks?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Just one more example. There are a few more ideas, basically. There are some conditions or diseases that are known to have secondary issues. For example, diabetes mellitus 2 or diabetes. A lot of Vietnam veterans, diabetes is a presumptive disease. So if they have diabetes and they're service connected for it, some of the other conditions can be peripheral neuropathy, which is numbness and tingling in the arms and the legs, also in the hands, that is known to be caused by diabetes mellitus 2. At sometimes hypertension can be caused and or related to diabetes, as well as erectile dysfunction can be caused and due to diabetes. So what we want to help you think about is if you have a disease process, is to be cognizant of the other types of conditions or diseases it may cause, because those can be service connected by a secondary service connection, as long as we have those three things Tom and Jeremy mentioned. So before we advance on to the next one, does anybody out there have any questions about secondary service connection?
I'm seeing none in the chat. All right, so the third method of service connection that we'll be talking about tonight is aggravation. Aggravation of a pre-service disability. A pre-existing diagnosed disease or disability will be considered to have been aggravated by active military, naval, or air service where there is an increase in disability during such service unless there's a specific findings that the increase in the disability is due to the natural progress of the disease. Disability or disease is noted at the entrance into service. Active military service shows aggravated the disability or disease beyond the natural progression of the disease. So an example is I just had a Marine that had this issue. The Marine was a football player before he went into service, and he tore his Achilles tendon. And he had multiple surgeries before he went into military service when he injured that Achilles tendon. When he got on active duty service, he re-injured it again and had to have multiple surgeries again on that same Achilles tendon that he injured prior to coming into service. So because of that, they deemed that the condition was aggravated beyond natural progression because it healed, and he was deemed of sound body and mind when he went into service. And ultimately, the military service led to him having to have that reconstructed and also the surgeries to happen again. So they stated that the military service caused his injury to be aggravated beyond natural progression. Tom, do you have any other examples?
Yes, I do. I just recently had one in reference to hearing loss. You know, a veteran actually, when they came on active duty, it basically showed that they did have some hearing loss in their left ear. And so basically that was done by the hearing test that was taken when they joined the military. So the numbers from that hearing test, you know, supported that, yes, indeed, that person already had some hearing loss going into the military. But then when you look at their service medical records, and they had multiple hearing tests throughout their military service to include their discharge examination, you see where their hearing drastically got worse while they were on active duty. So basically, even though they already had hearing loss when they came on active duty, their military service progressed that past the normal progression of that disease. Therefore, they were able to get service connection for the hearing loss related to their military service. Thank you, Jeremy.
Shane?
Yeah, actually, Tom, you stole my example because that's exactly what happened to me. I think you're reading through my records here for a minute. I was inducted into military service, and it was determined that I actually had such a significant hearing loss before I went in that I'm surprised I still made it through onto active military service in the Marine Corps. It didn't take long for it to get worse. And then when it got so bad, I was on hearing conservation. I lost a lot of decibels and a lot of threshold shifts that when I got out, they determined my military service aggravated my pre-existing condition. So this is the important takeaway from aggravation. When we talk about aggravation in this context, you had to have a medically known or medically considered disability or disease before you went on active duty, and your active duty made that pre-existing condition worse than if you weren't on active duty beyond the natural progression of the disease. So when we start talking about aggravation, you had to have a diagnosed condition before you went on. Active duty made it worse, and then we get a medical opinion linking it together. So that's the important part of aggravation. And it looks like we have a question. Okay, this is going back to No apologies, Brian. You can also unmute yourself when we get to this point. And if we ask if anybody has any questions, I believe everybody can unmute themselves. Or you can go to the chat box like Brian did. Brian's question, Jeremy, I'm going to pose to you. If someone has a secondary condition to a service-connected disability with a statement from a doctor stating it could have been caused by the service-connected disability and then gets turned down by the VA, what are the next steps or help that can be accomplished or provided by DAV?
So the next step would be to contact one of the national service officers if you're going to go with the DAV, or like Shane advised, if you're going with a different organization, so they can look into the file and see why that letter from the doctor was not sufficient enough to get that service connected as a secondary basis. So we'd want to research that information, look at that exact that medical opinion from the doctor, and also the decision made by the VA, so we can see what would be the best outcome and what would be the best directive to go for the three options of disagreeing with that decision, whether that's through a supplemental, higher level review, or appealing it directly to the board. But we could go over that with you in detail after the training today and kind of go over what would be the best option for you or for whatever veteran you're talking about.
That answer your question, Brian?
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and somebody provided another example in the chat is if you go into service with flat feet and it becomes significantly worse for whatever reason, yes, that is another condition that can be aggravated. And yes, that is something we have seen quite a few times, is if you have a condition before you went in, service has to make it worse. That's the key aspect to aggravation. So we'll go ahead, unless there are any other questions, we'll move on to the next. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
I think we just got another one. What about congenital conditions? Congenital conditions, for the most part, cannot be service connected. There's some that they look at depending on the condition itself, but that would be something we would have to look at what condition it is to see if that is something that could be related to your military service or not.
Right, and
All right.
one congenital condition that will never generally be service connected, and that is a refractive error or vision loss.
So the fourth method of service connection that we'll be talking about tonight is presumptive service connection. Presumptive service connection, generally, presumptive service connection can be established if a veteran meets the criteria for exposure and thus develops one of the diseases recognized as a presumptive disease. Disease subject to presumptive service connection: chronic diseases, tropical diseases, diseases specific to former prisoner of war, diseases specific to radiation exposed veterans, diseases associated with exposure to certain herbicide agents. This includes now with Blue Water Navy. Diseases associated with the exposure to contaminants in the water supply at Camp Lejeune. Claims based on chronic effects of exposure to mustard gas, and I think I'm saying it wrong. Shane can tell me. Lewisite?
That's correct.
And I know we'll probably have a question on it. Oh, there we go. Compensation for certain disabilities occurring in the Persian Gulf War. Presumptive is a service connection for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. So examples of presumptive, there's multiple different ones. If you have prostate cancer and you were exposed to Agent Orange, whether that was boots on ground or Blue Water Navy, some areas in the DMZ in Korea, or in parts of Thailand, you could be service connected for that condition if they deem that you have a current diagnosis and can link it to your exposures while in Vietnam, outside of Vietnam, Blue Water Navy, Thailand, and some parts of the DMZ and Korea. That is one of the examples. Same thing with Camp Lejeune water contamination. If you were there for at least 90 days, they could link Camp Lejeune water contamination if you meet one of those 8 conditions that are currently under that presumptive list. Tom, do you have any others?
Yes, sir. When you talk about chronic conditions, VA has a list of conditions that basically, if you get diagnosed with any of those conditions within 1 year of getting out of service to a compensable rate of 10%, then those would be presumptive conditions related back to your military service. Now, there's a few things on that list that it extends to 3 years, and one thing that extends to 7 years. But one thing to do is, if you're talking to a service officer, they can definitely pull that regulation out, show you those chronic diseases, and that way you'd be able to see if you were diagnosed with any of those conditions within those time frames. And that's very important, especially for those that are currently getting out. We can talk to them, so they can be treated and diagnosed prior to getting out and, within that first year of getting out. So, all right. Shane?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jeremy. When we start talking about presumptives, some of these that we've noted, it has to be a recognized exposure in a specific setting or location. And then, as Tom and Jeremy noted, if you develop one of the diseases on the list that VA has, then that condition can be granted service connection on a presumptive basis without requiring anything else, right? So that's why presumptive service connection can be very much easier way to establish. For example, like they said, Agent Orange, as well as Camp Lejeune, the contaminated water between the 50s and the 80s, if you were stationed there and you develop one of the diseases that is on VA's list, that is pretty much an automatic service-connected condition if we can prove your existence at that location and that exposure to go along with the disease that is recognized as being caused or associated with that exposure. Now, the one that's really unique, and it's the last one here on the list, that's why I left it up on the screen, is ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. This condition was added in 2010, and as a presumptive disease, it does not require exposure or anything else. All you have to do is serve on active military service for 90 consecutive days, and if you develop ALS 50 years after service, it will be granted as a presumptive service-connected condition. That's why I just want to highlight that one. That is the most unique presumptive service-connected condition within the VA system, is it's not predicated on a specific time of service, location of service. All it requires is that you served honorably for at least 90 days on active duty, and you develop ALS at any time after service, and you file a claim for it, it will be granted as a presumptive. So does anybody have any questions or comments in reference to presumptive diseases?
All right. So the next method that we're going to be talking about today is paired organs and extremities. Paired organs and extremities. Compensation is payable for the accommodations of service-connected and non-service-connected disabilities as specified in as if both disabilities were service-connected, provided that the non-service-connected disability is not the result of the veteran's own willful misconduct. Impairment of vision in one eye that is service-connected, and impairment of vision in the other eye, non-service-connected, loss of use of one kidney that is currently service connected, and involvement of the other kidney non-service connected, hearing impairment in one ear compensable to a degree of 10% or more that is service connected, and in hearing impairment of the other ear that is non-service connected, loss of use of one hand or one foot that's service connected, and loss of use of the other hand or foot non-service connected, permanent service connected disability of one lung rated at 50% or more disabling in combination with a non-service connected disability of the other lung. So Shane provided good examples there of conditions that could be service connected as a pair organ, like eyes, kidneys, loss of use of a foot. These are good examples of showing that one of your conditions is service connected at that degree that it needs to be to get that additional one service connected also, as long as the veteran did not cause the injury due to willful misconduct. And that's a big thing. If the veteran caused willful misconduct, they cannot get it granted due to a paired organ due to them not going by how to describe that. With willful misconduct causing the injury themselves and not being caused by the military itself. Trying to find a better way to say willful misconduct, but I think that's the best term that I could come up with is they caused the issue and the military didn't cause the issue themselves. Tom, do you want to go in depth with that?
Sure. Thanks, Jeremy. Now, one thing in reference to the willful misconduct, basically, let's just use an example that you get in a car accident and you're already service connected for missing right hand. You get in a car accident and next thing you know, your left hand gets amputated in that car accident. Now, in that example, you would be granted service connection for the right hand based on paired organs and extremities. Now, use that same example and you're drunk driving, then that would be considered willful misconduct. So you would not get service connected for that right hand. Now, hopefully that helps you understand willful misconduct. But when you're talking about hearing loss is one that, that's probably one of the newer ones that they added to this list. And when they did that, one of the things that you look at is there's a lot of veterans out there that are only service connected for one ear because, let's just say they had an explosion that happened right next to their head on their right side. So that right ear is very bad. And once that right ear meets a 10% by itself, which is very hard, you're almost totally deaf in that ear by the time you meet that 10%. As long as the other ear meets the minimum criteria for service connection, then you can get service connection for the other ear, even though you didn't have, the decibel readings in service to meet service connection. And that can change somebody from a 10% to jump them all the way up to an 80 or 90%. You just never know what's going to happen there once you add that other ear in. So it's just a good example to talk to people about as far as the paired organs and the extremities. Shane?
Yeah, thanks, guys. You did a great job of explaining this. And paired organs and extremity is a little bit more rare of a way to get something service connected because it only applies to these that we provided to you, right? So it's only in reference to whether it's vision in the eye, the kidney, the hearing loss or loss of use of one hand or foot, and respiratory conditions or the lungs. However, this is also, as Tom noted, very much missed at times by the VA. We have seen several examples over the years a VA missing the fact that a veteran met the 10% for one ear at service connected and didn't realize the other ear met the criteria for service connection, and they failed to apply paired organs and extremities and grant service connection for that other ear. And as Tom indicated earlier, when you then combine the hearing loss in both ears, that can vastly increase the veteran's hearing loss and vastly increase their disability. So those are things VA tends to miss at times, and it's just something you should be aware of as a veteran. Now, it's not going to apply to every veteran in every case because they're not always going to have all of those disabilities, but it's something very important to understand and know, because it really can make a difference in your own disabilities. Anybody have any questions for Jeremy, Tom, or I?
All right. So the next method that we'll be talking about is disability due to VA hospital care or treatment, also considered under 1151. That's just the regulation that the VA uses. For the purpose of this section, a disability or death is a qualifying additional disability or qualifying death if the disability or death was not the result of the veteran's willful misconduct, and the proximate cause of the disability or death was carelessness, negligence, lack of proper skill, error in judgment, or similar instances of fault on the part of the department in furnishing the hospital care, medical or surgical treatment, or examination, or an event not reasonably foreseeable. So examples that a lot of times you're going to hear is this, unfortunately, has happened in the VA, is cutting off the wrong extremity. This has happened in the past, and that is one of the major reasons why doctors write on which arm that they're going to work on, or which leg, or where they're going to be working on it, to make sure that they're doing this properly. There's other examples of them leaving instruments into your body and causing significant issues to organs, skin, or other things. And those conditions could be service connected if it was caused due to malpractice. Now, take into account that when you have these types of surgeries or these types of procedures, that you sign an agreement with the hospital. And if there's conditions that are on that list that say these could possibly happen, those would be not used, because that's where Shane said as well, that you could not get service connected under malpractice with the Department of Veterans Affairs. So examples is if they cut off your right leg and they were supposed to cut off the left, now they'll have to service connect that condition as well due to their negligence. Same thing as if they provide an instrument in your body and it damages a kidney. If that would be the case, then they would also have to service connect your kidney due to the malpractice from the doctor. Tom, any other?
Yes, Jeremy. So another example that we see sometimes are veterans. You may be going in for a comp and pension examination for one of your disabilities, and so you're trying to get an increased evaluation on your left shoulder condition, and the doctor is asking you to do range of motion tests and things of that nature. And next thing you know, the doctor grabs your arm and pulls it out of socket, and when you're trying to do something different and the doctor's pulling it the other way, and basically really hurts you, so you can then get service connection or increased evaluation based on the causes of that doctor's negligence. So, Shane?
Yeah, again, great job, guys. Just to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit, again, there has to be a additional disability caused by VA's carelessness, negligence, lack of proper skill. So just kind of discuss a little bit what Jeremy was was talking about. For example, erectile dysfunction is commonly known to be due to a radical prostatectomy for prostate cancer. So if the veteran is not service connected for the prostate cancer, goes in to have the prostate cancer and the cancer removed, they develop erectile dysfunction, that is not going to be a disability caused by VA's carelessness, negligence, or lack of proper skill, because as Jeremy noted, there are conditions that are automatically known to be related to that surgical procedure. This is more to do with, as Jeremy also noted, a condition, a new disability caused by VA's malpractice, whether it was a wrong amputation or, as Tom noted, due to a treatment that caused an additional disability. That's the thing to remember is for a disability due to VA healthcare or treatment, it has to be an additional disability caused by negligence, not just because it's a regular condition that could be caused by that type of condition. It has to be something really caused by their negligence in order for it to be service connected. Anybody have any questions about that? All right, we have a question. What if you receive medication that caused another disease or condition such as hypertension, Bell's palsy, or paralysis? Well, if that medication you received is for a service-connected condition, then you could claim secondary service connection for that disease or condition caused by the medication. If the medication is not for a service-connected condition, but those are known conditions of the medication, that may not be a claim under this instance, because it again has to be due to negligence of the VA and a reasonably unforeseeable event. If these conditions are known to be caused by that medication for this non-service connected condition, that would not be service connected in this instance. I hope that answered your question. I see that you posted another question in there. We can talk about that after this so we don't get too far involved into.
Any other questions? All right. So our last method of service connection is disability due to VA training program. For purposes of this section, a disability or death is a qualifying additional disability or qualifying death if the disability or death was not the result of the veteran's willful misconduct and the proximate cause of the disability or death was by provisions of training and rehabilitation services by the Secretary as a part of an approved rehabilitation program under Chapter 31 of this title, or by participation in a program known as Compensated Work Therapy Program. So an example, I had a service officer that was going through vocational rehabilitation that was doing an event out in town and got into a car accident at that time and injured their back. Due to them being on vocational rehabilitation, they were able to get their back service connected due to the injury they sustained because they were doing it for vocational rehabilitation to obtain that job. Tom, do you have another example?
Yes, I do. So I had a veteran that was under vocational rehabilitation to basically become an automobile mechanic. And he was going through his training, and during one of the days of training, they were lifting an engine out of the car, and the engine let go, and his arm was in there, and it fell down and broke his arm. So basically, he was able to get service connection for that broken arm because of the fact that it happened while he was under his training for vocational rehabilitation. So, Shane?
Oh yeah, thanks guys. Again, kind of a similar situation. A veteran gets into voc rehab. Vocational rehabilitation, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is a training program VA provides to veterans who are at least 10% disabled or 20% or more to retrain them into a career field that won't aggravate or aren't limited by their service-connected conditions. So if they're in voc rehab, vocational rehabilitation, as Jeremy and Tom noted, and develop a new condition or disability, it can be service-connected. Similar to that, I represented a young veteran once who got approved to go through several courses for him to try to get into the police academy. Voc rehab was paying for a lot of additional things for this veteran to try to become a police officer and join the police academy. During their hand-to-hand training, the veteran actually got his shoulder dislocated and fractured a leg. Apparently, they didn't know it was just hand-to-hand combat training and not the real thing. And he got 2 disabilities because of it, and a VA granted service connection for both of those because it was caused by his vocational rehabilitation, which is a recognized VA training program, and he was attending the classes they authorized. So that's how it works. Now, these examples aren't as common for most veterans. If you're not in voc rehab or haven't attended vocational rehabilitation training or classes, this wouldn't apply to most of you, but it is another avenue service connection. So, does anybody have any questions before we go through our summary for Jeremy or Tom?
Just so everyone knows, we kept on talking about vocational rehabilitation. It is now called the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program. So they adjusted and changed their name. So if you look it up online, it's not going to come up as vocational rehabilitation anymore. It's going to come up as the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program.
And that tells you how old we are and how long we've been doing this. We've known of that change for a few months, but we keep calling it voc rehab. So thank you for the correction, Jeremy.
Yeah. I have to correct myself because I knew I said that and just remembered what they changed. So in summary, what is service connected and why it is important, and the 7 methods. So it's important because that is the way that the veteran is going to be able to get benefits for the conditions they sustain in service, to include the additional benefits that we provided at the beginning of this training as well. And then the 7 methods that we went over was direct, secondary, aggravation, presumptive, 1151, VA due to Veterans Readiness Program now, due to vocational rehabilitation, and paired organs. So we went over all 7 ways of service connection. Does anyone have any questions about the training?
So yeah, if you have any questions throughout the training, if you've thought of anything, you can go ahead and fire them up. You have Jeremy, Tom, and I available. And again, we have over 50 years collectively of experience of representing veterans in the VA process for DAV. So if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free. If you think of them later, which usually happens to most of us, right? You'll think of it 5 minutes later going, oh, I should ask this. Please send us an email and we will get a response to you. Please feel free to reach out to us and we can provide some basic information to make sure we steer you in the right direction.
And once again, everybody, we definitely want to thank you for attending this training tonight. And like Shane said, if you do have any questions in the future, or you're looking at filing a claim, or you're looking at possibly filing for an increase, please contact us. We'd be more than happy to assist you in getting that taken care of. Jeremy, any final thoughts?
Real quick, just before we wrap, I just wanted to add one thing. I'm sorry. before we close out and we officially are done and Jeremy gives his closing remarks, please let us hear from you. Even if you don't have any questions, but if you felt like you learned something this evening, you felt like this was a valuable training and overview of benefits, please let us know. Give us any feedback. You can send it to an email, or if you think that this was the greatest training ever and Jeremy Yost is a rock star in the service world, please let us know.
I appreciate that, Shane. We do have a comment. Great information from DM. So before we close, I just want to give out my email address to our office. So if you guys do have any questions, seeing that we are probably the closest national service office to you, please contact us, myself or my assistant supervisor, Lindsay Kinslow, or my associate, Lottie Miller. We'd be more than happy to go over your information and go over any questions that you might have. So our email is DAV.V as in Victor, B as in Bravo, A as in Alpha, W as in Whiskey, A as in Alpha, S as in Sierra, at va.gov. And that is our email directly to our office. And any of us three that are currently in that office would be more than happy to go over that information with you and help you with your case. And Shane was nice enough to put that in the chat as well, so you can pull it up in the chat to make sure that you put it down correctly. But I want to appreciate everyone to come out and listen to us tonight. And that's all I have.
Commander Wendell, did you have any closing comments before we close this evening's online benefits information series on the 7 methods of service connection?
Yes, I do. First, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. We greatly appreciate it. We will be continuing these throughout the year, so hopefully you'll see some additional training from us. If there's specific subject matter that you're looking to hear about, let us know. We can definitely look at doing a seminar on that. Or like I said at the beginning, go on to our website and you can see some of the ones that we've already done, and that may answer some additional questions for you. And keep in mind, Veterans Day is coming up, so remember all the veterans out there. And one thing that DAV, we're getting ready to do our DAV 5K, and if you want to join our team, we're putting that out tonight. So join our team, and we're going to do a little walk around DC. So and hopefully we can see some of you out there. If not, you can still join the team. So, but we appreciate everybody, and we definitely hope to see you at a chapter meeting sometime in the future. We know right now it's a little hard for everybody right now with COVID, but we do still have our meetings. But if you could still join our meetings online as well. So hopefully you're getting our newsletter and you'll be able to see that you can join our meeting online. And we're having a little fun learning how to do that part. So we greatly appreciate everybody being here tonight. Shane, any closing remarks?
No, I just think it was a great job by Jeremy and Tom. I'm always excited to be a part of these things and what Chapter 10 is doing and providing this additional information for our members and any veteran who wants to know these additional things. And I know it's a Tuesday evening, and a lot of people may have other things going on, but thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part, asking questions, and participating. And Jeremy, as we noted, is the supervisor of the DAV National Service Office in Washington, D.C. So you can reach out directly to him in his office for claims assistance. You don't need to come through Chapter 10. He provided his email earlier. I went ahead and put it in the chat box. So if you want to reach out directly to Jeremy and his staff, they can help you directly if you have any questions or problems. And again, thank you all for coming. Great job, Jeremy and Tom. And unless anybody has any other comments, we can go ahead and call this a wrap.